challenge, and it's live and running. Look at that
Hey, hey,
beard.
hey. Oh yeah. We
Look,
bring it. We bring a full game.
what is on your face? Let's
Uh,
talk about that.
well, it's called full growth, I think.
Oh my God, I've never seen that, bro. Okay, okay. Looks good on you, man. Suits you. You
Thank
got that Bollywood look going on.
a little bit. I'm wondering if I should go for the beehive look or not, but it's in
Uh,
progress.
listen, you don't have that choice. You gotta ask wifey
I know,
if
so
you're
true.
allowed. If you're allowed.
If I'm
Listen,
allowed.
thank you for joining me at 9 a.m., man. It's I know it's early, but I know you get up early and do your thing. So hopefully
Yeah,
it's
no.
all good.
Yeah, awesome, man. No, it's good. 9 a.m. is good.
Nice. So we got a lot to unpack.
Hmm.
This entire week, we're talking about how do you find your voice? Not the voice you're given, not the voice that, is a little person and you're trying to understand what's going on. How do you consciously design your own life? But to consciously design your own life, you need to know who the hell are you? And what are some
Hmm.
of the ways? Some of the guests we had this week talked about clarity, getting, if you can't figure out what to do, figure out what you don't want to do, and then what's left is where you can start. Yesterday was fantastic. Millie was like, "No, don't talk to your ego, talk to your soul." And it was such a
Mm.
bomb moment. And I was like, man, all right, we're gonna talk to Brad, but I want to unpack some of the tough decisions you've been able to make in life. The
Right.
moving, the leaving the job to be an entrepreneur and leaving a country. There's some incredible moments where you had to decide what to do. So I want to unpack all that. But before we start, you give in your own voice the people a minute intro and finish off with telling us one milestone that you're super proud of in life.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for having me on board today. Like, it's always like, I love our chats. Like, we go back quite some time. Speaking to you every time is energizing for me, right? So honored to be here, honored to be on this. And to answer your first question, and just I'll talk about my intro in a second, but when it comes to change and moving forward in the direction of personal growth, I think the number one thing is actually being plugged into stuff like this, is being plugged into a support network that is there that wants to see you succeed, that wants to see you thrive, that wants to see you find your expression of yourself, right? That's one part of it. It's very important. And whether it be networks, whether it be individual relationships, I think they all add up in some way, shape, or form. So selecting that is really, really simple. So also thank you to you for keeping a platform like this going, because it makes a big difference for everybody, right? My 1 minute in, you know, very quick. I was born and raised in Dubai. Everybody has multiple facets to themselves, right? So, like for me, I have two facets to myself. There's the personal side, and then there's the professional side, right? So, on the personal side, technically, I'm a third generation genocide survivor, right? My
Mm,
grandparents are originally from the border of India and Pakistan. Prior to 1947, for most people they don't know, it was one country. India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh were actually one country, and then they split the border, and then that sparked one of the biggest civil mass migrations in human history. And not many people really know about this. It's very interesting. Okay, so basically between 500,000 to 2 million people passed away in that transition. It was pretty
oh,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah.
Story was my grandparents actually went to the train station to get a train to go over to India because they were on the Pakistani side of the border, and everybody on the train was dead. Like,
What?
that's a true story. Like basically they went to get a train and they were like, oh my God, so we're not going to get on this train. And so my grandparents decided to move to Sri Lanka, actually. So
Oh, wow.
my grandfather ended up going to Colombo, where my mom and dad were both born and raised. Like, so my mother's side and my father's side. So my grandfather retired from there, and then he moved to a city in India called Hyderabad. Um,
Mm,
and then from there, my dad finished university over there, and then he moved to Dubai, which is where my story starts. I was born and raised in Dubai, and I grew up in Dubai for my childhood. And then when I was about 5 years old, we discovered my mom had brain tumor.
mm,
So we had to go back to India for a treatment because in Dubai at the time, there wasn't advanced brain tumor treatment, right? So for surgeries and stuff like that, we went to Dubai. We went back to India, and when we went to India for her treatment, that was the first time I'd ever been to India. You know what I mean?
wow.
You know, and believe it or not, I didn't even know I was someone of Indian heritage until that point. Because think about it, identity is a construct in your head. It's what,
Yeah.
to a certain degree, it's a story that we have been shed, and kids don't think about identity, to be honest. Kids are just life full on, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I was the same. I didn't know. I had to understand what kind of brown I was until I got to Canada and in
yeah,
Scarborough. And even then, it was like the first week of school where other kids needed to figure out where I fit in.
yeah, yeah, totally. And kids, like before identity kicks in, we're full of possibilities.
Yeah.
We're full of we're full of we're full of, what's the word? We're mesmerized by everything around us. Everything is magical, right? And then identity kicks in, and then so on and so forth, and then you get stuck in a certain place, or you find yourself in a certain way. And if the identity that you've developed for yourself over that portion of time, if it's not healthy for you, then sometimes it requires you to consciously go out of that reality, right? So, so sorry, I don't mean to digress. And that's my challenge. Open disclosure. My challenge is I tend to digress in so many different ways. I have to bring myself back. We went to India for my mother's treatment. Her final resting place was a city in India called Pune. We went to a bunch of
Mm.
different cities for her treatment. And so Pune is a city about 4 hours south of Mumbai, which is what most people know. After she passed away, I ended up spending time in Chennai. I finished high school there. I finished university there. And then from there, I moved back to Dubai, where my brother and I took a startup, which was a staffing agency. And we took it from two people splitting Subway sandwiches and wondering how we were going to pay rent to exiting in 2010, at the end of the midst of the financial crisis. And then I moved to Toronto. And that's so now transitioning onto the professional side of me and that side of me. So I've been in talent and culture for 10 years, right? So I did the startup thing from 2004 to 2010, moved to Toronto. Given the fact that I went to university for engineering, I studied mechanical engineering. I thought, okay, I wanted to reinvent myself. And I thought, you know what, I didn't want the hassle of having an office and hiring people and all of that good stuff. I said, actually, I want the simple life now, because most people don't realize running a business is not easy.
Oh yeah.
You know it more than anybody, right? It's a lot of energy, and it's a good challenge. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for it. I'm back in that game right now. Happy to go down that route, and total respect and empathy for founders. But when I moved here, I said, okay, I want to do something light. So I said, you know what? I wanted to recruit for a different skill set. So I got into recruiting for construction and real estate and property management, did that for a year, then moved into recruiting for accounting and finance for 2 years in a large corporate organization, actually. And then from there, I got headhunted to work with a company that specialized in managing condos and residential properties, which is a small place where I learned something that we're using in order to do what we're doing right now. And
Mm.
then the last place was the biggest pivot of my career, actually, which was Office Coffee Solutions. And prior to that, I'd always been in talent and culture, right? And
Right.
that's my jam, and I love it, right? I love what can happen when you put a group of people together, and the vision's right, and the culture's right, and what a magical journey that can be for everybody. Everybody feels alive, everybody's thriving, everybody's winning, which is people as individuals, people as groups, and the marketplace. Your
Mm.
customers are benefiting from what you're doing. And I got this opportunity to work with a company that specialized in managing coffee programs for offices and commercial spaces. I was invited to meet with their CEO to help them kind of scale their business. And guess what? I was fascinated that companies spent money on coffee for culture.
Yeah. That's
I
awesome.
I was like, what? I was like, what? And I was like, okay. And then and also I was enamored with the founder. I'll be honest. He was a really good guy. A lot of respect for him. He built a business, over 22 years as a sole proprietor. The journey, man. It's not easy.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not easy. Uh, and I'm not saying it's not easy to get anybody concerned. It's very important that when you see someone do something that's not easy, that's an opportunity to learn. That's
Say that again. Say that again.
When you see someone do something that's not easy, that's the opportunity to learn. I think that is one of the greatest gifts um, that a person can get is to participate in the journey of people that are trying to do tough things. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And that's what I'm grateful for, right? So I looked at this and I said, wow, this guy is run a sole proprietor business for 22 years, and like how did he do it, right? And and I jumped in with both feet,
Wow.
and it's been a glorious last 4 years. We exited, last year. I decided to move on and said, no, you know what? I've been working on this for some time, and I said it's time to get committed to it. And
Man,
it all started with, thinking, how do we make coffee programs more meaningful for our customers? That's where it started from.
I love it, man. Don't
Yeah.
forget to tell me about your milestone.
Oh, got you. Milestone. Okay. So this might not sound significant, but it is really significant because I think it laid the foundation for how I think and for how I handle change for me. So for me, a big milestone was I used to be obese as a kid. So I went from being obese to taking myself to not being obese and getting into good shape.
Mm.
That was a huge milestone for me. It happened at puberty. I was 15 years old. I basically discovered women, and I was like, whoa, okay, I gotta get in shape.
That's
I was
awesome.
like, okay, oh, there's more to life than food. So,
There's more to life than food.
food.
Love
I
it.
was
I
like,
love it.
I was
I
like,
love
okay, let's do this. Yeah, it was worth it. I'm married now,
it.
thank God.
That's amazing, man. Listen, just
Yeah.
in that 1 minute intro, there's so much to unpack. I love the idea of before identity kicks in, we're full of possibilities. What a line. And that's one of the things that we try to unpack here, right? This topic of identity. Talk to me
Mm-hmm.
about the early self-identity. There's the 5-year-old Brad
Mm-hmm.
that that has to move now, and how
Mm-hmm.
much of the cancer do you comprehend? But you're like, I got it, but something's not right, and we're moving, so I got to now transition the 5-year-old from Dubai to India, and then there's a conscious decision to lay back in India, which is not the
Mm-hmm.
easiest place to live and grow up in, from what I
Oh,
know and what I heard,
it's
right?
culture shock.
Dealing with a culture shock and all of
Yeah,
that. And then there's
yeah.
another decision to go back to Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
So just in that span of like the first 2 decades, there's some
Mm-hmm.
pretty big changes. What is your self-identity going through at that time?
Okay, so that's a really complex question. It's a great question, and I can talk about it for hours.
That's
So
what we do here, man. We
the
we unpack.
so personal fascination, right? I'm sorry if I keep looking away because I sometimes go in a different state of consciousness. So I've always been fascinated about three things. And I don't know why. Um, I've always been fascinated with how people relate to each other, right? Like what allows someone to say, I have your back, like, and I trust that you have my back, or what is it that allows people to say, I will have your back. Don't worry, you go ahead, do your thing, or please have my back. Just general, how do people relate to each other? The second is how people relate to themselves. How do they see themselves? How do they understand themselves? And how do they arrive at how they understand themselves? And then three is how your relationship with yourself affects your relationship with everything around you. Right? I've just been fascinated with that my entire life. So I'll give you an example of where these fascinations kind of manifest in an inquiry or in kind of like, oh, what's going on? So for context, so technically, I'm more spiritual than religious, so to speak, but that's me. I was like technically I'm from a Hindu house, right? At
Mm.
home we practice Hinduism, but I was born in a Muslim country, and I went to Catholic school. Let that digest for a second.
No confusion there at all to the identity.
No,
Super
not at
straightforward.
all, not at all, right? And I technically descend from a place geographically on this map that I've never been, and I'll never go back. Like I'm technically from a province in Pakistan called Sindh, right? And so for context, for most people, I have to share this context, otherwise people miss the point. So in India, when the partition happened, there were three provinces that got greatly disrupted. There was the province of Sindh, there was the province of Punjab, which most people know the province of Punjab
Mm.
because we've got a lot of Punjabis over here. A lot of people think I'm Punjabi. Hey, what up, Punjabis? I'm just across from the pond in case anybody's there from that side. And then the third one was Jammu Kashmir, right? So Punjab basically got split 70-30. 70% of it went to Pakistan, 30% went to India. Sindh went to Pakistan 100%. That entire province went to Sindh. Jammu Kashmir is still under dispute today, actually.
Yeah.
So they're still
Yeah, it
going through a
still is.
struggle. It's
Yeah.
still under dispute, 60 years down the road. So in the province of Sindh, we were a minority, right? And so, but my grandparents were in Lahore at the time. So technically, I'm from a province on the map that I've never been to. So I barely speak that language too. I can understand it to a certain degree. Now, I realized when I was a kid, my mom and dad would speak in a certain code language to talk about stuff that they didn't want me and my brother to know. So I remember asking my mom, you know, what is it about this language that you're not teaching us? Like, why are you not teaching us this language? Isn't this our language, or isn't this our cultural heritage or something to that degree? I can't remember exactly what age it was. It was roughly around the 5, 6, or 7 year age, in between that space. And then she basically said, listen, what I want you to understand is language is a tool and a bridge to connect with people. What's more important is that you connect with the people that's in front of you rather than focus on the language that you're speaking. The language can be whatever it is, right? So she's like, she's not dissing language. She was like, but if you're in Germany, you speak German. If you're in Russia, you speak Russian. And she said, I don't want you to attach your identity to language, because she said, if you identify your identity to your language, then you identify to those people as your people. She says, I want you to see all people as your people.
Wow. So
Right?
profound.
Right? And I'm like, what? Right? So that's one life story. The other one is, what was the other one? The other one was with regards to religion. I remember asking my dad, you know, once, like, hey dad, you know, what's going on with all these religions? Like, we do something here at home. My buddies are Muslim, and like, you know, they do something, like they speak about the Quran, and then I've got other buddies that are Christians, and they're speaking about Jesus Christ. I'm like, what's going on here? And my dad's a little old school. He's a good guy, love him to death. But he's not one for many words. It's kind of interesting. I think I ate up all his words, and it all comes out through me. And and I asked him, like, so what's the gist with all these religions? Like, what's going on? And keep in mind, I'm a kid, right? So I'm just asking from a space of curiosity more than anything.
Right.
I'm just getting confused. So my dad basically looks at me and says, I'll pop the Indian accent because it's a lot more fun with that. He's like, listen, all you need to know is you're born a Hindu, you'll die a Hindu. That's all you need to know. And he walked away, right? Didn't answer
Man.
my question, right? And my mom, from the corner of the room, saw that I was still puzzled. I was looking up at the stars and kind of going like, what? It didn't answer my question. And my mom said, what's the problem? Like, well, what are you trying to get at? And I said, listen, I'm not saying that I want to convert, or I'm not saying I want to do anything different. I'm curious. I just want to know what's going on, because they all sound like they're trying to say the same thing, give or take, in one shape or form. But there's an identity thing over here. So my mom said, listen, what you need to understand is that these paths were basically meant to help you understand your relationship with the universe, what we understand today as the creator, and most importantly, meant to help you be a good human being. I rather you focus on being a good human being than focusing on what you're like, than identifying with a certain religion. And she's like, I think the example she gave me, I believe, if I remember correctly, was when a person looks at you, they're more concerned, are you a good and authentic person, than are you someone that's the same religion of them? Like that they genuinely more concerned about that. Like if
What
they
a
like,
yeah. What a knowledge bomb, man, at that age. Shout out to your mom,
right?
man. Rest in peace. I
She,
mean,
she,
wow.
she, yeah. So that was a big one for me. And then I went further on and I said, oh, okay, got it. And then, okay, but how do I let them know that? And then she said, keep one thing in mind. When people also see you, essentially what they're trying to do is they're trying to identify, are you a friend or are you a foe? Right? Or are you a friend, or are you someone that would work for their well-being or work against their well-being? That's all that they're really trying to do. Human beings have a reptilian brain, right? Like most people know this, or I don't know this, but like human beings still have an element of a reptilian brain at the back of your head, which is all about survival. It's all about flight or fight, right? It's constantly looking to protect you. If it
100%.
identifies if it identifies with something that's not in accordance with your well-being, it's going to say either get out or fight, right? So she said, when people look at you, that part of their brain is making a decision, right?
Mm.
That part of their brain is kind of going threat, not threat, threat, not threat. And until they're fully, so I said, well, how do I make sure that they see that I'm not a threat? Like, because what if I meet someone that's of a different religion, but I mean no harm, and I want to be their friend? How do I let them know that, right? And if I don't have any time for them to make that decision, because those decisions happen in a split second. And sometimes people
Right.
don't even know that they're making those decisions, right? Now, and she said, well, ultimately, it's the look in your eye. She said, when they look into your eyes, they'll know. And she said, you can't fake it. So,
Mm.
well, which is why, if you notice, when we speak, even though from time to time I may move and look in a different direction, like to gather thoughts, but I'm all about eye contact when I speak to someone.
Yeah, 100%. And the first few times we started to get to know each other, that was a little unnerving. I'm like, look away, bro, please.
Yeah,
Why are you
no,
staring at me?
I know. It's so important.
I
It's
love
so
it that at
important.
such an early age, you have the guts to ask some big questions. Because I don't know many 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds, and I have one at home, a 7-year-old whose biggest concern is, will I have the iPad this weekend, Daddy? And what can I do to trick you to giving me the iPad? And here you are having some conversations about identity and where do I fit in. And I love the fact that at such an early age, she took away your concept of what language can do, what religion could
Mm,
do, and really brought it down to this reptilian mindset of very quickly, if through authenticity and physical demeanor, you can show that you're, here to get somebody else's back, the
yeah,
flight or fight or love can
yeah,
be controlled, right? And
huge.
if on the other side, we as humans become aware that that's how we're initially judging each other, then how
Mm-hmm,
can we control our narrative? What will make our brain start with love more than flight or fight? And what barriers
mm-hmm,
and what stereotypes have we been listening to that immediately
mm-hmm.
says, oh, I'm gonna have a wall until this person breaks it down versus let's not have a wall at all and build it if
Mm-hmm.
need to later,
Mm-hmm.
you
So
know?
yeah, totally, man. I hear you. And so think of it this way: what if the reptilian brain? What like now? I'm all about the tech now. Like I'm just gonna throw in some tech language. So think of the reptilian brain as the binary, right? Where it's trying to make a decision, and then there's an algorithm at the back of that decision making, which says if this, then do that, right? If we got that algorithm wrong, can you imagine how many bad decisions we're making?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what we do have to ask ourselves from time to time, what is the algorithm? Well, what algorithm are we using to make that decision, right? And don't get me wrong, it's still very, very important. It's really important that you you are cognizant and human beings as a it's your natural instinct. It's not just a human instinct. It's a life instinct. Even a
Mm.
tree will try to protect itself. I saw this. I heard this on a talk once, which was I thought was pretty crazy. So interestingly enough, apparently in Africa or in India, when an elephant is eating a tree, the trees will send out a signal to the other trees that, hey, I'm getting eaten, and other trees will start sending out a poisonous chemical so that the elephants don't want to eat that tree.
What?
Yeah, that's
That is the
crazy,
wildest 9 a.m. story, Brad. I need to drink some coffee.
right? And so basically survival or the willingness, the want to survive and thrive is innate in all human beings, right? So I'm by no means am I saying just completely put your guard down and then say, come get me. You know what I mean? But it's very important to be mindful of what that algorithm
Yeah.
is.
No,
It's
I love how you're connecting the dots. I want to talk about uh, taking this knowledge you're getting from your mom, going
mm-hmm,
through some really tough time with your mom, and then at some
mm-hmm,
point you're like, look, I'm gonna stay with with my dad in Chennai and finish my school, and
yeah,
then why back to Dubai, somewhere where you left at 5, and
mm-hmm.
a brand new
9.
culture
It was
again
9. I
at
left at
9.
9. Yeah.
brand new culture again, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and what is going through who you are and what you want to do at that point, because you've seen a bunch of the world in a much different light that early on in life.
Oh, oh, fair enough. Yeah. Oh, and so it gets more complex. So it's a lot more complex than that. So here's the again, keep having to add context because otherwise people sometimes will miss it, right? So here's context. Even though you're born and raised in Dubai, they don't give you citizenship. They don't give you citizenship. They don't have a naturalization policy. You can live there as a resident in the Middle East, like in the GCC countries, which like they're the way that they've structured their environment for expat people or immigrant people to come and work is say come work, enjoy yourself, have a good time, make some tax-free cash, but once you're done here, please move on,
You
have
gotta
a
get
nice life.
out. Yeah.
All good, right? And it's not even get out. It's like, this is a revolving door. It's a platform. It's transient. It's not coming from a bad place, but this is the deal. This is what you sign up for. This is what we're offering. You want to take it, take it. If you don't want to take it, don't take it. So when you're born into it, though, you just get born into it, right? So I always say I was born into a twilight zone. I was born into
Mm.
an environment that I could never be a citizen of, right? But no one told me that when I was growing up. So I just thought I'm a citizen, right?
Yeah.
I just thought, yeah, this is my home. This is where I'm at, right? And I also remember, so this is identity crisis shock 101, which again adds context. So I remember once when we were in India, arguing with my dad, saying, "Why are we here? Like, what's going on? Why are we in India? I'm so confused." And also, we were in the south, like I think we were in Mumbai or Chennai at the time. I can't remember, but I can remember that the cultural shock was so strong that I was very clear I was in a different country. I was very clear I was in a place that people thought differently or felt differently and stuff like that. So I remember asking my dad, "What's going on?" So he said, "Son, technically this is your country." I said, "What? No, it's not." I said, "Dubai is where we're from. That's where my home is. That's where I go to school. That's where my friends are. That's where your brother is, and that whole thing." I'm Virgo, so I'm very factual. So I
Right.
remember I remember running to my bedroom and I pulled out my passport and I ran to my dad with my passport and it says place of birth, Dubai, UAE. And I said, "So here, like read it and weep. It says right here, place of birth, Dubai, UAE. I don't know what you're talking about." And so he said, "Well, listen, tough guy, like, why don't you close the passport and see the first page?" And I remember closing it, and it's saying Republic of India. And then I was like,
Mm.
and I
Oh,
was like,
damn.
I was like, I was like, what? What?
I'm Indian?
Right? But by citizenship, but keep in mind, now most people don't realize this, even in India, we don't have a province. Like the people that I'm from, like for example, you're of Tamil heritage, right? There's a province in India that is called Tamil Nadu,
Hmm.
right? So when I go to India, I go, "Where's Sindhi Nadu?" You know what I mean? Like it doesn't exist. So even in
Wow.
India, we're kind of a minority community. There's no province. So one shout out I'll give out to the Indian government as a thank you. What they did in order to make people feel more at home is they recognize the Sindhi community or people from that heritage as a displaced community into India, and to welcome them, what they did is they inscribed their language on the Indian note, on
Hmm.
the Indian currency note, which is kind
Right.
of like, we recognize that you're a part of this country and, this is home for you, like kind of thing. And it was a sentimental thing. So, sorry. So that's just for context. So
Yeah.
when I moved to India, the idea was not to stay in India, actually. Like my mother ended up passing away in India. My dad has, had a real estate battle going on in Sri Lanka, in Colombo, actually. So it's actually a crazy story. I don't want to get into too much of it right now, but basically my dad's been in fighting a real estate battle in Sri Lanka for 20 plus years.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It really makes me think about how we live as societies and how we live as civilizations, right? But that said, so the idea was my dad said, "Listen, you know what? I need to fight this real estate battle over here. Why don't you finish high school over here? Like, let's just do it over here. We'll dock in Chennai because he has friends over there." And the U.S. embassy was there. So actually, at the time, the idea was we would finish high school in Chennai, And then from there, we would move to the US. We were
Mm.
supposed to go to New York. I was supposed to go to New York University.
New York.
New York, right? And I actually went to a school called Don Bosco.
Huh.
Great school. So they're interestingly enough, I found out they're here in Toronto also, in Etobicoke, right? That's crazy how these all connect. And the idea was finish high school there, and then when it comes to university, hopefully he said my case will be done by then, and then we'll go to New York. He's like, I wanted to be done with Dubai. I just want to go, like, we'll go to the US, right? Like the whole Western dream, right? Like the immigration dream. Let's be honest.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
with all due respect, I think India's a good country. I think they've got a lot of potential there, but back in the 80s, 90s, there's a reason we're all over here.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And long story short, what ended up happening is, now shock number, life is a whole bunch of shocks. Shock was, we finished high school. My dad realized, oh, you know what? I just realized it's going to cost me $300,000 cash to send you and your brother to university in the US. Guess what? I don't have it. so you're going to university here. I go like, what? And so I ended up going to university over there, and because it was affordable, and the universities are good there. Like, as you can see, I seem relatively normal, and a lot
Above
of
average. I would say above average.
Reasonably average. And India, the education system there has produced a lot of really, really good leaders. If you look at in the US, CEO of Google is from Chennai, and he's educated in India. Satya
And they
Nadella
they literally beat it into you. So
yeah, totally,
yeah.
literally. So, but technically, when I was living in India, I was an expat while I was living in India. To me, I was the non-resident Indian. In fact, even when I went to India, people wouldn't accept I was Indian. They would say, "You're not Indian. You're not from here. You're here as a tourist, but you're not born here. You're not raised here." So, and I was in Chennai at the time, so I picked up Tamil while I was there. I speak Tamil reasonably good, like on a scale of 1 to 10. I think I speak at about 7. You and I speak from time to time.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, and I'm happy to. I love the language. It's an awesome language. And so, but once I finished university, the whole idea was, okay, I want to move back to Dubai, which is where I thought I was from. And now, call me naive with crazy dreams. And so when I moved back to Dubai, I was 20 years old. I thought, because I was born in Dubai, there must be some loophole for me to get citizenship, right? I was like, there's got to be a way. I was like, I just couldn't understand this whole idea that you're born somewhere and you don't get citizenship, right? It didn't make sense to me. So I went back to Dubai and I said, okay, where do I go to apply for citizenship? And I was asking around, and they said, well, yeah, sorry to break it to you.
You don't get it.
That's not an option. But you can get a visa, though. You can stay here on a visa, which is great. And I kind of go like, well, what happens when my visa is done? And they go like, what do you think?
Gotta go.
You go back wherever you're from. I was like, but I'm from here. I'm technically coming back to where I'm from. And so that was the reason, like, in all fairness. And so when I went to Dubai, I realized, okay, at 20, okay, I can't be a citizen here. Okay, got it. It sunk in that as much as I emotionally love this place, and as much as I think that this is a good place, I had some good friends there. Weather is amazing. It's always warm. The roads are amazing. The beaches are amazing. All that good stuff. So much. And I said, okay, but I need to find a place where I can call home, where I can go and become part of a community, make that place my own. And I also wanted to be in a place that, where I could be home, where I could be part of society and community.
Why was that important? The reason I ask is we live in a gig economy, transient world. Yeah. There's a generation of young folks where being free and mobile and not being tied to a place.
Yeah.
And I ask that because early on, your mom is telling you, don't be tied to a language, don't be tied to a religion.
Agreed.
And being not tied to something allowed you to be open and responsive to humans. And
Right.
then you get to 20, and what you're craving is an identity to a place. And
Actually, if I had to make it more clear, it's not that I'm craving an identity to a place. I'm craving a groundedness. That's what I'm craving. Being all,
tell me more about it. What does that mean? What does that mean? It's a nice
so
word.
so
Get
ground
down to like, what does that feel like? What does that mean?
so groundedness just means being in a place that you have the rights to bear roots and keep them there if you want, and other people will respect those roots. That's what it means. Or now, keep in mind, as individuals, we always make those choices, and we're constantly making those choices, and we're constantly, going through that. But I have to admit, like with Canada, if you think about it from a constitutional perspective, this is an amazing place. It's amazing. Like constitutionally, it is. You can be here. You can be from anywhere, and when you're Canadian, you're Canadian. This is home. No one can take that away from you. As Justin Trudeau says, a Canadian's a Canadian is a Canadian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think now, although language is not a barrier, but I did grow up speaking English. English is my first language, as you can clearly see. So I would say Tamil and French are my second languages. When I was in Chennai, I picked up Tamil. I've always been fascinated with non-homogeneous environments where people were from multiple different places. So that was also a big draw for me for North America. I wanted to be somewhere where you could be from everywhere, from anywhere, and we could all be human first.
Yeah, and what I love about where we're headed with this home conversation is, uh, you know, uh, the idea of belonging to a place is fascinating to me, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
meet so many people that at a much later in life consciously move. Like my parents decided to leave India and go to Singapore.
Mm.
They decided to move to Canada. And I don't know if at such a young age, like 20, 19, you know, I would be like, look, I need to find a home because we don't consciously think we're not at our home at that age. Most of us, like, we have other things we think about, like what do I want to study and who do I want to meet,
Mm-hmm.
or but at age 20, 21, wherever you are, you're still trying to like get roots into home.
See, that's an interesting point. I think there are lots of different intersections there when you think about it. So one is that element, yes. And I'll share with you where it comes from. When I was in India, and this is a true story. So there was a story that I'll share with you after this. So when I was in India, I realized I didn't realize what a difference it made being somewhere that you're actually a citizen of, right? So for example, if someone like would not agree that I was Indian, maybe um, emotionally that was their decision. Maybe from their state of consciousness that was their decision. But the passport in my hand said otherwise, and that they could not take away from me,
Hmm.
right? So I could fight that back. I could say no, I am from here. So whether you like it or not, that's your prerogative. But yes, I am. Like I
Hmm.
technically have that. So that's number one. Number two is there's a certain strength that comes from that. There's a certain space that you can operate from in a certain way when you have that no one can take that away from you. And this is a true story. Don't post. Please don't. I'm happy to share this on the podcast, but don't create this as a video and post it on YouTube. Okay. But this is a true story. So we were in Dubai, and my brother and I, we used to staff for exhibitions, conferences, and product launches and corporate events and stuff like that. And one summer, we did a project. Entrepreneurs, we do crazy things, right? So we said, hey, and we were in the experiential marketing place, right? So we said, okay, so Perrier was one of our clients, and we said, okay, and Perrier was just coming out with their product into the marketplace, and one of the places that they wanted to sell Perrier was in nightclubs, right? So, but keep in mind, like we're young kids, we're 22 years old, and I was 22 at the time. My brother was maybe about 25. I think he's like, yeah, 25. And we're thinking, okay, I think we see an opportunity. What if we hired go-go dancers from the UK, brought them over to Dubai, put them up in an accommodation, right? Like, you know how people work on cruise ships, right? So we're thinking, like, you know, we could hire go-go dancers and then bring them to Dubai. Like, we call them podium dancers, right? And and cut a deal with the nightclub saying we'll offer you the podium dancers, yeah, for like at no cost, but conditionally that they would be branded Perrier,
Period.
right? And then we went to Perrier and said we have a sponsorship opportunity for you, right? And in fact, sometimes we got the nightclubs to pay also. So and so and we're entrepreneurs. We're like just doing our thing. So one day, you know, after a night's honest night's work, I was doing the right thing, and I wanted to make sure that the dancers were safe and they got back home safely. So I drove them home. So I drove my brother back home first, dropped him off, and then I was pulling out of the driveway, and a cop pulled over next to us, right? And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm just going to drop these guys to their hotel. That's it," right? And he basically said, you know, "Come to the police station." I said, "Why? I've not done anything wrong." And he said, like, and he asked them, "And who are these people in the back of my car?" I said, like, "Listen, they're just friends, or we work together, and I'm just dropping them home. I'm not doing anything crazy. No
Mm.
drugs, no, like, I'm not drinking. I'm not drinking in a public space, nothing, right?" So he said, like, "Listen, just come to the police station." And I said, and I was young. I'm hot-blooded. Once I'm grounded somewhere, or if I've not done anything wrong, I will not shake. So I really
Mm.
didn't care. I was firm. I was not cocky, but I was firm. I wasn't like, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to," like, I said, "No, you tell me what I've done wrong, and then I'll come to the police station. But if you can't
Jeez.
tell me what I've done wrong, then I don't see a reason to come to the police station." So he asked me for my ID. He asked me for their ID. I gave it to them. And then he said, "Why are you here?" Because we were in a parking lot, and my brother was staying in a 2-bedroom, like a complex kind of thing, right? So I said, "I just dropped my brother over here. Like, my brother lives here." And he's like, "Okay, call your brother." And so I called,
What?
yeah. So I called my brother down, and my brother's a good guy too. Like, he's pretty strong that way too. But when he came down, he was apologetic to the, and this was like 2 a.m., right? So he was a little apologetic to the cops, and he was like, "Sorry, you know, like, you know, we shouldn't be out here at 2 a.m. You know, we're going home. We're just going home. Nothing crazy." And he was being a little bit more respectful, I think, or he was a little bit more agreeable, so to speak. And I was looked at my brother and I said, "Yo, bro, why are you being apologetic? I have not done anything wrong." Like, you know, like,
He's like, "Brad, shut it. Get
exactly,
inside."
right? He's like, "Shut it." And he said, like, "Listen, we just don't want to get into trouble." I said, "I'm not in any trouble." Like, we're like, what have we done? I've not done anything wrong. And like, I'm so naive, right? Like, I'm a guy at the age of 20 that's walking around trying to find out how we can get citizenship in Dubai. Like, if I hadn't figured it out by then, I'm not the smartest cookie in the jar, you know?
Yeah.
So, so I was just very straightforward. And so my brother said, "Listen, just don't get, like, we don't want to get in any trouble. Just let it go. Just say you're sorry, and like, just go home." And I said, "All right, fine. Okay, we're going home." You know, I said it nicely. I said, "Look, okay, we're going home. Well, what else do you want from me?" And as the cop was pulling away, like, this is like a movie, right? Like, literally, he pulled back, stopped, looked me dead in the eye, and he said, "This is not your country. Don't forget it." And then he
Oh,
drove away.
wow.
And the piece that hurt the most is that it was the truth,
Wow. That
right?
is crazy.
I'm not offended by anything. And believe it or not, I'm not offended by it. And we're talking about identity. We're talking about facts. We're talking about real life, right? So let's be honest. I just, it may be, I see a comment that's true. I agree. It may be rude, but the fact was, it was the truth.
Mm.
The truth does not need our agreement or our disagreement. It needs our acceptance.
Hoo, hoo, hoo. The truth does not need our acceptance, but
It does not need our,
agreement.
it does, no, it does not need our agreement. The truth does not need us to agree with it. It needs
Wow.
us to accept it. Whether you and I believe that we're breathing oxygen or not, oxygen doesn't care, right?
Big.
So I was like, I'm a factual guy. So I said, yeah, he's right. He's, at the end of the day, he's right.
Mm.
Because if it was somewhere else, I would say, no, it's not true. But I couldn't say that. And I'm big on integrity that way, right? If I believe, if something's fair, if something's right, I'm, like, I'll be all for it. But if it's the truth, I will not, like, there's no point in trying to argue that I'm breathing in nitrogen. There's no point,
Mm.
right?
What
So,
an amazing way to explain the importance of truth in this process of finding your voice,
right?
man.
I'm so sorry if I've digressed or gone in a completely different
No,
direction,
this is what
but
I love about
this
my
is,
this 9 a.m.s, man.
right?
Like things bubble to the top that are
Yeah,
meant to be.
yeah. So, and so that was it for me. And I said, and that's when I made my decision. That was the decision I made, like, to kind of go, like, okay, I'm applying for immigration to a country where I can go become a citizen, and then that's my place, and no one can take that away from me, right? And so I applied, I moved here,
That's incredible, homie.
right?
Like when I started down this journey of trying to understand how to understand your own voice, it it was much easier in my head when I started the chapter Monday morning. But with every guest, I'm getting a bit more of the real talk you have to have. And this
Mm-hmm.
comment of like the truth does not need your agreement is the bomb because it's the one thing that we avoid and we debate and we try not to agree with.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
the minute you let it sink in, whatever your truth is, whether it's what your home is or what your financial condition is or whatever your relationships are, like once you accept the truth, and for me, one of the biggest moments is realizing at my height of what I thought was success, the
mm-hmm.
dumb and labeled stupid kid, broke all the rules from getting, making money to starting my businesses to all the stuff. And to the end of his days, my pops would not give me the respect that I wanted. And when that truth sunk in, that no
Mm-hmm.
matter what I do,
Mm-hmm.
I'll always be the 1982 version in his head.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to let go of so much of the voice in my head that was angry.
100%. And what's really the other piece that's really, really important is that we have to be careful what we have accepted as the truth as well. So, which is why it's a fine line, it's a fine balance of approaching being authentic and curious in your pursuit for truth and being careful for what you have already accepted as the truth. This
Mm.
is a very important thing too, because it's a double-edged sword. If you have accepted something that's the truth as the truth that is not the truth, that's disastrous,
Does the opposite.
right? It does the opposite. So let's say, for example, if I was told that nitrogen dioxide or nitrogen is the air that I breathe, and I accepted that as the truth, and if I walk into a building and I see two doors, one says oxygen, one says nitrogen, which door am I going to take?
Mm-hmm.
You got to be careful what we have accepted as the truth. So, which is why I always say dogma is death,
Mm.
right? Like dogma, like if you have accepted something as the truth without, from a space of information versus a space of realization, it's completely different. Completely different. We know a lot of stuff. There's enough knowledge. Like Google knows everything, right? You want to know anything, like just go Google it. Really, I'm not even kidding. Like my wife and I were at the hospital the other day. We were checking if she had a flu. The doctor in front of us said, "Let me Google that." I was like, I was like, we're having these symptoms. These symptoms. Oh, let me check on Google. What symptoms do you have? I was like, oh, I think you have the flu. I'm like, so
Oh,
you
that's
know,
amazing. Listen, we got 9 more minutes to go before
sorry,
Instagram
yeah,
kicks us out. So I got a couple more things I want you to
mm-hmm.
break down because I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
the
yeah.
way you approach stuff. So this fine balance of truth and not truth
Mm-hmm.
anchors into a daily belief system and routines that constantly get you into this mind frame, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
in your current routine, what are some of the things that you do every single day that you got to do to stay on point? New routines, new habits, new ways to govern yourself. What are some of the stuff you do every single day?
One thing is I meditate every day. I do yoga every day, consistently. Like, it's been about 3.5 years now. I've not missed a day.
Nice.
I've had a cracked rib in the process. I also have not missed a day. My practice would change, but I have not missed a day. It's equivalent for me brushing my teeth, right?
Mm.
Um, that's the one big thing I do every day. And the other piece is really, it's not rocket science. Is you just show up as best as you can, and you know that. That's the truth, right? You've built a business, and that's the beauty of the truth. What's truth is universal everywhere. We just keep finding it in different versions, but the truth is still the same. At the end of the
Mm.
day, what allows you to do something is you just show up. You just show up. What I've tried to harness, and if you look at in the future, when people look at our lotus flower, you'll notice that the Culture Mindful logo, I don't mean to talk about Culture Mindful at all, but if you see it, it has 3 parts to it. There's the internal bud part, which is deep purple, and then there's the second part, and then there's the third part, which is the full bloom. So and I keep asking myself, what is that? Like, because it's calling to me. It's calling to me. Like, when we created it, I knew it looked good, but I kind of go like, it's calling to me and it means something. And like, I just kept paying attention. And so you'll notice on the bud, it has 3 points. So, and we all start off as buds. We all start off as something that has potential. And people in front of us are also a bundle of potential, right? So what takes that from going from there to the next step, to the bloom? So we'll forget about the bloom, forget about the middle part. Just start at the base, at the root, at the fundamentals. And I realized point number 1 is paying attention with presence, right? Without bias. That's the first one. Like, free of dogma, if you can. And that's hard to do if you think about it. It's really hard to be present and pay attention, pay attention with full presence, with no story running in the background, with no narrative coloring what you're seeing.
Mm.
The second is listening to understand, right? Is listening just to understand, not to arrive somewhere, just to understand. And the third is respond to serve. Respond to be of service, whether to be the person in front of you, to yourself, doesn't matter. That is the starting point for everybody. If you dissect what anybody has ever done, it'll all go back there. So that's kind of what I do. Like, I focus right now, right? So every time I'm at a point where there's an issue or a challenge, or I'm trying to figure out what the solution is, I go back here. I say, like, okay, pay attention with presence, and don't have any backstory. Don't have your filters running around. What you know from realization is okay and it's fine, but be careful what you have factored in that algorithm.
Mm.
Second is, listen to understand. Just listen to understand. Just what is happening here. And the third is, okay, what is now required of me? What response is required of me?
I love it.
Right, and then that's pretty much it. And for people looking to find their voice, what I can share from my time in when you're from going from obese to not being obese, especially when you are going through change, when you're going from where you are right now to finding your expression of who you are, it'll be like you're shedding skin. It'll be like you're shedding parts of you. And sometimes that means being drastically different.
Mm.
And that journey, what the biggest thing that I think people have to watch out for is the place people have put you in their reality for their comfort. And don't be a slave to that. I'll give you a
Right.
simple example. When I was trying to lose weight, to people like in my circle, like, so now my intention is to lose weight. I want to get thin, right? For context, my waistline was 40 inches. At the age of
Mm.
13, that's not a normal waistline.
That's
That's
not
huge,
healthy.
right?
Yeah.
So I kind of went, okay, I want to get a girl someday. I want to have a relationship. There's more to life than food, right? So I said I wanted to lose weight. Now, as I'm starting to lose weight, I realized that there were certain people that I'd identified with me as the fat kid. You know, the fat kid, the fun fat kid, the fun fat cute kid. I didn't want that identity anymore. And as I tried to change my identity, some people would want to reinforce that identity. No, don't try to lose weight. Why do you want to lose weight? You're good the way you are. You know, that's all good. You know, because in their reality, I was that comfort point because I was fat and made them feel thin. Right? And so I'll close with this as a true story. So I was running around, like, so I would basically go back to school and run 10 rounds after and play basketball. I played a ton of basketball. And I remember once I was running and one of my seniors stopped me, and he was coming from a nice place. I can't remember his name, but he said, listen, like, you know what, please don't take this the wrong way. You see those guys over there, they're laughing at you because you're, you know, it's, you know, it looks funny, like fat kid running around. It just looks funny. And I was also wearing funky shorts. I was from Dubai. My dress style was completely different.
We got less than 30 seconds. Let's go. Bring it home for me.
And he said, don't run, like, stop running. I realized that moment in time I needed to make a critical decision that would change who I am for the rest of my life. I could either stop running or I could continue running. And I just looked at him straight in the face and I said, that's their problem, it's not mine. And I continued running.
Listen, you have a bunch of fans already. Giselle thinks you're Yoda's cousin. You got a bunch of new fans that are going to follow you. I love our conversation, man.
Likewise.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.
Nah, there's so much knowledge bombs in there. I'll make sure that we cut out the parts that we could use. The 3 keys are super important. With 10 seconds to go, are you happy? Or do you feel like you're home?
Absolutely. This is home. I'm in home ground. I'm home wherever I am. Like, don't get me wrong. I could be home anywhere. But I'm grateful to be in Canada. It's an awesome country. Like, we get to do this. This is amazing. You know, I think there's a lot of opportunity and potential out here, like, for us to do great for the world. And I'm excited to do it in an all-inclusive way.
Thank you, brother. I'm going to shut down before they kick us out. I love you. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Likewise.
Bye.
Cheers. Ciao. Bye.
Wow, man. 30 seconds ago before I got to shut down, before Instagram kicks me out. Guys, thanks for watching. So much knowledge bombs. I can't even explain to you how I'm feeling, but I'm feeling grateful for Brad for joining me, for you guys joining me. Take the 7-day challenge, man. Discover gratitude. Hit me up. I'll send you the document. It's going to be amazing. I'll see you guys for episode 35 tomorrow morning, Friday. I love you. Have a blessed day. Thank you so much.